Welcome to the Black Knight Nation podcast. I'm your host, Sal Interdonato. The Black Knight Nation podcast is brought to you by Higher Echelon, company run by Joe Ross, former Army fullback, former Army assistant coach, former Army officer, guest on the Black Knight Nation podcast. We thank everybody for joining tonight. Uh, 10 o'clock start. I know the World Series Game 7 is going on, but we got to talk some Army football after a big win over Air Force. Didn't want to wait till Sunday. Have Seth Mendelson from Black Knight Nation here, have Cuthbert from Sidelines Army here, and have Cam Holloway, former Army offensive tackle here for the first time on the Black Knight Nation podcast. We're going to get Cam's insight on the player's perspective of the game. That's going to be great to hear from Cam. And man, guys, just a crazy game. I thought Air Force had the momentum late in the game. We'll talk about what happened, and then Army throws a ball over the top. Cale Helms to Brady Anderson sets up the game-winning field goal, and Army walks it off. What a game! Definitely, Army needs this win, right? I gets them to 4-4, and gets them now to play for the Commander-in-Chief's trophy against Navy on December 13th. 2017 win for the Black Knights. Seth Mendelson, your initial thoughts on Army's big win?
Well, I totally agree with everything you said. Big win for the Black Knights. They had to go in there, had to go to Air Force. It's not a friendly place for them, and they had to pull the game out, and they did. And let's be honest, those last 4 minutes of the game were amazing, confounding, scary. I sat there and watched the game with my son, who's a big college football nut, and he's like, they're really going for it on 4th and 1 from their own 26. And the answer is yes, and they didn't get it. And we sat there and said, oh no, what's going to happen now? And then, let's be honest, this team rose to the occasion. Cale Helms, a perfect pass to Brady Anderson, who did a great job catching it and set up the winning touchdown. And suddenly we're 4-4, and we're in the bowl picture again. And maybe more important to many people, we're in the Commander-in-Chief trophy picture again. A victory over Navy gives it to Army again. So yeah, I love the game. I love the outcome, and I love the game.
The ups and downs. Cuthbert, talk to us about your thoughts. I mean, it was man, the emotions of the fourth quarter, and then when that pass is completed, I know there was a pretty loud roar or shout by me in my house. I don't know about you.
Let me tell you what a great way to get a win. After Charlton State, North Texas, Tulane, boy, it feels good to finally get one in the last second. I got to say, I really loved it. I loved what we did with the playbook. Obviously, I would have loved to have been in control of the game more and to have won, walking away. That wasn't in the cards. That's okay. An absolutely great game, a tremendous effort. Can't speak highly enough about what the defense was able to do. And, if we play Air Force 10 times, I don't know if we're winning 9 of them, but you know what? We only had to play them once and we got the W, and that's all that mattered.
Cam, what's your thoughts? I mean, I look at this game. It was the first time Army played a game at Falcon Stadium since 2019. So the Army players are playing their first game in the rarefied air to 6,226 feet of elevation, and they have the warning, I forgot they put the warning outside the opponent locker room door. And, toward the end, real quick before we get Cam's comments, Larry Pickett has some great video. Black Knight Nation's Larry Pickett Sr. was there for us. He has some great video. Check out our YouTube page. We have the alma mater and the team walking off, and basically a lot of players saying, I can breathe, I can breathe, I can breathe as they're walking toward their locker room back after a win. Some good stuff there. Sorry to interrupt Cam's thoughts here. Cam, give us your thoughts on the game, like a nail biter to the end.
Yeah, I am extremely proud of the boys and the way they fought today. These CIC games are not an easy game to win at all. You can be an undefeated Army team, you can be an undefeated Air Force team playing the worst Air Force team you've ever seen in your life, and it doesn't really matter because it's a CIC game and it's a rivalry game. So I'm just so impressed by the way they fought. As we talked about a little bit last week, I'm always a stickler for the offensive line and just controlling the line of scrimmage, which I think they did a phenomenal job of running the football today. Cale looked phenomenal. I love the moxie on that kid. He played his absolute tail off today. But we won the rushing yard total, and that's always a huge factor in these games. But I think the biggest thing is defense. I mean, really, as you said a little bit earlier, I don't think the game should have been as close as it was. I mean, hell, you have 2 interceptions, a fumble, 2 sacks, and it's tied going into the last, minute of the game, 2 minutes of the game. That's insane. So I think from an offensive standpoint, they have to be a little bit better and be able to capitalize on those turnovers because our defense was playing phenomenal. But all in all, I don't care how you get the win as long as you're winning. So to be able to come out on top is always a good thing in these CIC games.
Yeah, you've been around Nate Woody maybe a little bit, and I know Nate Woody definitely loves to stress red zone defense.
Yeah.
And when you have 2 takeaways in the red zone today, that takes away at least 3 points each time for Air Force minimum. I mean, big plays. Casey Larkin with an interception. Cole Seawright coming with a strip sack, and senior DeShantez Gray falling on it. I mean, there were 3 or 4 Army guys that could have fell on it. Great to see DeShantez Gray recover a fumble in his last Air Force game. And I mean, you're right. It's just like, man, the defense played their tails off. And, Nate Woody, Cuthbert, this stat is astounding. Before Air Force scored their first touchdown today, 32 straight possessions without a touchdown. Air Force against the Army. It's just amazing how he scripts up or draws up defenses against Air Force. And I thought like Air Force quarterback was going to have a decent day against Army. I picked against Army today. I'm going to be honest because I thought that Air Force would be able to score points, and Army's offense hasn't shown that they can score really more than 20 points in a game, really, against a really good team. When it matters, and I was wrong. Then I'm right as soon as I make my pick, then I'm right in my prediction time. I'm writing how good Nate Woody is in these games. How really good he is. They were averaging first 5 games. Air Force averaged 8 points a game against Nate Woody. I mean, pretty impressive. I don't know, Cuthbert. What do you think about the defense's effort?
I think it was absolutely incredible. I mean, you can't take turnovers to the bank and expect to be able to get 3 turnovers a game and that's going to carry you to victory. But it carried us to victory today. I think that our defensive game plan, by and large, I really liked it. I mean, I hate to be giving up yardage the way we were around the midfield, seeing them being able to operate. They had a couple of that screen pass on 4th down. That was an absolute heartbreak. But you know what? We made the plays when we needed to. I felt like for the first time this year, we were actually able to get real pressure on the quarterback. Obviously we had a couple of sacks, but beyond sacks themselves, just getting some pressure, feeling like we were doing some blitzes and they were being effectual. That was so fantastic to see. I feel like that's been a component of our defense that's been lacking this year to a certain extent. And that those turnovers were coming off of that pressure. 2 interceptions, obviously the strip sack, the fumble that we were able to recover. Cannot speak highly enough of the defense. And I mean, I don't have a total in front of me. I don't think we had too many missed tackles. I think we definitely had a few over pursuits. There were a few cutbacks where all of a sudden we've got 2 guys who, were ready to make a tackle, and now they've both taken themselves out of the play because they've maybe over pursued by a yard, and the Falcon offensive player would make a cutback. But by and large, I didn't see a lot of mixed tackles. I saw what seemed like a lot of one-on-one, in space, and our defender is coming up. He's playing with speed, he's playing with intensity, and he's putting a hat on a hat and making a tackle in the open field. I was very happy to see that.
I think Andon Thomas really set the tone on defense early. He had a tackle for a loss, and he had another pretty physical tackle early. I think he set the tone. I know that they forced he had tackle for loss that forced Air Force to punt on their first possession. And I think that, as a captain, he really stepped up his game. You look at the stats on defense. Colin Madison had 11 tackles at safety position and 10 solos. I mean, that's another senior who's going out and playing his heart out against in a service academy game and leaving it all out on the field. You had a number of guys do that on defense. The Caleb Fortners, Cody Harris Miller coming back from injury. I asked him during the post-game press conference, was there any motivation in your recovery to come back for this game? And he said, absolutely. Absolutely. I want to play in this game. He hadn't played since like game one, but having Cody Harris Miller's presence in the middle helps, and I mean, just the defense plays pretty strong. Seth, did you have any thoughts about? I know you said it earlier. Did you have any thoughts about the defense while we're on it? And now
Yeah,
on to the offense.
Two points about the defense, one about the offense. One is those turnovers saved at least 14 points. Okay, they were the two of those turnovers came deep in Army territory, and they saved. In my opinion, they could have scored a touchdown. It may have been a field goal, but it could have been a touchdown. Also, let's remember they missed a field goal attempt. Okay, that's point one. Point two is I was very surprised how the Air Force did not try to pass the ball more than they did. I think he threw it 19 times. I expect him to be in the 30 range, and he wasn't. And I think that's because of that's because the defense just played so well. Focusing on defense, the defense won the game. The offense, my point about the offense, there were a couple of big plays. We really didn't have a great offensive performance. We had a touchdown pass to Noah Short, his first of the year, which was great. And then, of course, we had the long pass late in the game. Okay, those were our two big plays. I guess we grinded out one. Actually, we didn't. That's it. Those are the two touchdowns. What am I saying? So, it's to me, we got to work on our offense. We got four games left. We got to work on our offense.
It's week 8, man. If you need to work on your offense in week 8, you're in trouble, man. And I will say this. They were, and Cam, we talked about this, I believe, the big plays, right? They needed big plays in this offense. Yep. And I said in the prediction time, I said, Army will win this game if 3 things happen. They throw for 150, the defense scores a touchdown, the special teams scores a touchdown, because the offense just wasn't getting those big plays. But today they got those big plays, and we'll talk about how they got those big plays, right? That new formation that they made last week, they put it in the offense. I believe Brady Anderson said they're calling it the lonesome polecat, I believe, for some reason or something like that, where they put the linemen on the spread 2 linemen out, 2 or more linemen out wide, and kind of have 3 offensive linemen in the center of the field. It's a really what did you make of that, Cam? Because that was a little crazy when I saw it. And the first play they run it's the touchdown pass to Noah Short. So
yeah, I'm a little bit old school like that. The little wing gate formation, I like it just because it mixes it up a little bit. But I'm very old school, especially in these games. I want to just line up and run smash mouth football. I just want to run the football down their throat. But like I said, I'll take a win however we can get it. So I love that, Coach Worley's getting innovative and just finding things, to switch it up. Because, so much of those games, I was surprised, Seth, that Air Force didn't throw the ball as much, but I think it was because of the pressure that he was receiving and also because of the interceptions. But, Air Force, I think out of the 3 academies, they throw the ball the most. And so anytime that we play these games, our offenses are so similar. So, everything that we do, offense and defense, is so similar. So just trying to find small, minute things to throw into the game plan of the week, just to throw something that they haven't seen before. I like the ingenuity of it. Like I said, I wish we could have just lined up and just flat out whipped them up front. But that's kind of how these games go. You never know what you're going to get. But I'll take it however we can get it.
Yeah, and Briggs
Hey, Ken, let me ask you a question. Ask you a question on that. I noticed both times Army lined up in that offense, the Air Force defenders would go and line up against the offensive linemen. They were supposed to, even though the lineman was 20 yards away from the ball. Why would they not? Why would they do that? The lineman can't go out for a pass. Why are they doing that?
You just never know, because sometimes when you get into those formations where you have all your offensive linemen spread there, you don't know if they're going to do like a quick dump pass out to the right and they can get some type of movement up the sideline, or if they're just going to run it up the middle. Sometimes it's just flat out a decoy just to make the defense think we're going to do something else. But it's like, you know what? No, we're going to run the same offense that we're usually going to run. We just want to give it to you in a different formation to make you think a little bit more about what type of defense you want to run against it.
Yeah, that's a great point, Cam. Because they did throw they'd throw a pass. I called it a screen pass.
Yeah, swing gate,
Cuthbert.
whatever you want. Yeah.
It was what was that pass to Briggs Bartosh that kind of Kel Helms threw? It kind of was a check down, but that was almost like a screen pass to me. I
Yeah.
don't know. Is that an RB screen pass there?
That's what it looked like to me.
Crazy stuff. But like you said, Cam, and take what you can get, come up with some different stuff. I'm sure you could tell us stories about some stuff that when you were on the team that they drew up the week before.
Well,
I don't
remember,
know if you want to talk about that stuff, but
remember we talked about in that Army Navy game, we ran that reverse pass on like second or third down that hadn't worked all week in practice, and I was just like, yeah, I knew we had nothing else left in our bag when he called when that call came in from the sideline. I was just like, my goodness, happens at times.
Earlier on when the offense was struggling and they were trying to do everything they could, they were dipping really deep into the playbook and they just couldn't come up with scores. Now, this is something you have a customer. They had a bye week, right? So they made good of the bye week. They came up with a different formation, and are they going to run it next week against Temple? Probably not. But it's something that now you have on tape that maybe teams have to be aware of.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to give us.
I was going to say, listen, they come up with plays. They also put God's power in the game for 2 plays.
Okay.
Who expected that?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, Cuthbert, you have a thought.
I don't want to say that. Listen, I don't want to give us too much credit here on Black Knight Nation as being the tastemakers for the Army offensive scheme, but we've been talking for weeks on this podcast about trying to open up the playbook a little bit. I'm an old school guy like you, Cam. I love the smash mouth football. I love 3 yards in a cloud of dust and exerting our will against an unwilling defense. That being said, that was absolutely the game plan I expected today. I looked at our offensive line and the Air Force defensive line, and I thought this is going to be Tulane / Kansas State 2.0. This is going to be lots of grinding out. Cale Helms is going to carry the ball for 35 to 40 times. I mean, I think he did end up with 26
carries. Yeah.
Still a lot. But from the beginning of the game, it was very clear that was not the game plan we were going to be running. And I don't think we had as much success with that power run as maybe we expected. But looking at the way the game went, I think it was the plan all along to have the playbook opened up like this. We've got these new formations, and it's not just the lonesome polecat. There were plenty of plays where we had trips left, trips left, deuces right, empty backfield in the shotgun. And I'm looking at this going, what are we running exactly? Cale Helms, he's great at scrambling. He obviously loves to pick his spot on a QB follow, but he's also great at scrambling. We saw that on his 3rd down conversion that set up his eventual touchdown run. So I think us opening up the playbook like this, I think it's fantastic. And I'll tell you, I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but if you're Navy, who's been undefeated to this point, and you've been playing mistake-ridden football but getting wins against inferior competition, and then you run into a buzzsaw like North Texas, you lose by 14. Oh, and by the way, guess what? Army just beat Air Force, is looking to get the CIC back, and we did it with a bunch of formations you've never seen before. I think I think this is fantastic. I would have loved to have won by 21, but a W is still a W. And I was very impressed with Cale Helms passing. That touchdown to Noah Short, I know it was only 40 yards in the stat.
It's a dot.
But I went back and looked. That was a 55-yard pass in the air that he made almost flat-footed. So I'm very impressed with his passing. Sal, you mentioned we'll go ahead and call it a screen. I don't think it was really a screen the way screens are designed, but close enough to Briggs Bartosh. I think that's different play. He snaps the ball, immediately fakes it to Bartosh, looks downfield, and then goes back to him. I think that's fantastic. I was very, very happy to see the playbook getting opened up, and it wasn't pretty all day, and we only went 5 for 9 for passing, but we had 102 yards and a touchdown on top of another 100 and some odd rushing. Helms went for another 98 on the ground. Couldn't be happier.
Yeah, let's go to this comment real quick. Thanks, Army Saber, for joining us tonight. A clutch pass to set up a win. I'm excited about the games ahead. I think Army is getting it figured out. Thanks for the podcast. It's this game to go from crap, they didn't make it on fourth down. You let Air Force back in. It's 17-17. People were I heard somebody say to the point, why didn't Air Force go for two? Right? Well, because they're playing at home. You kicked the extra point. You left 126 on the clock, and who would have thought 126 was enough? Normally say, Army, they'll run a couple plays to see if they can pick up a first down, and they'll settle for overtime. They didn't settle for overtime today. Maybe in the past that might have been the mindset, but when you had the success that you had in the air a little bit, when you missed a couple passes deep, a pass earlier in the game deep to Noah Short that you probably could have had 6 on. They were going to throw. They were going to test the young secondary of Air Force. That's what they were going to do. And even before they throw the pass, they only need 20 more yards to get in the Dawson Jones field goal range. Run. I think there were 20-something seconds left. Run. They're going to run. No, they went through the air. And I tell you, I mean, the ebbs and flows, just the emotion of this game. And then, you know what, guys? Cam, you can talk to this a lot. Let's get Scott checked in with saying that was a resilient win. Thanks, Scott, for joining us. Absolutely. How about the end of the game? The game's over, and Coach Monken and Cale Helms. That emotion, and them kind of dabbing. Just a lot of emotion, hugging, whatever. Cale Helms told us in the press conference that Monken, his freshman year at the Army-Navy game, I think Cale was just dressing for the game. He wasn't going to play. And Coach Monken told him, you're going to be in these games and you're going to win a CIC trophy at one point in your career. And for 2 years later, for Cale Helms, who was the third-string quarterback in preseason, and now this is his offense, this is his team, and for him to start his first CIC game at Air Force and to get a road win, I'm not too sure how many Army quarterbacks have done that. Start their first service academy game and win at Air Force. I don't know. I have to go back.
We haven't won at Air Force very often, so it can't be too many.
Well, 2017, Bradshaw was an experienced quarterback, so it wasn't in 2017. Right. So, I mean, that's saying something.
What was before that? What year did
we went out? We went out there and we went out there and we I won't say the officiating wasn't great, but I think we lost by like a touchdown or 3 points because we drove the ball all the way down the field and they didn't give us a touchdown when we were like on the 1 yard line. I vividly remember that. That was the last time we played out there. We ended up losing that game. 2019, we lost that game.
Jabari lost, yeah.
Yep, Jabari lost, and I think it was Connor Slumka who, his entire body was in the end zone, but they didn't call it a touchdown. We ended up losing by 7. I think Kelvin Hopkins came in that game to win it, and it was just tough loss.
I had some notes earlier in the game, man. This is the first time in games that I actually were putting notes on my phone. And if I were to read my notes that I had in the first half compared to how the game ended, and I don't know. I thought some of the officiating was a little questionable. With that Cuthbert, that fourth down screen pass, there was definitely a block in the back on that play right in front of the officials that let the Air Force guy, I believe the 5th-year guy, his name is escaping me, pick up the first down. But, I mean, I don't know. They fought through some adversity. And let's just say it like it is. We're bouncing around here. But the players saved the coaching staff in this game. The players saved the coaching staff in this game because you can say, hey, this is our mentality. We're on the 26-yard line. We need 4th and 1, 4th and inches. We get this first down. It clinches the game. But 99.9% of the time, and maybe every team but Army punts in that situation.
Well, I'll say just as a comment on the referees, I'm not a blame the referees kind of guy in terms of, you win the game on the field, you lose the game on the field. And if you feel like the refs screwed you out of it, you put yourself in a position where the refs could screw you out of it. And I really do believe that. That being said, there were a couple of calls that I took exception to. Specifically was the pass interference that was called in the end zone. Because number one, that ball is uncatchable.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to mute Cuthbert for a second. He was coming in a little. Hopefully, maybe he can come out and then come in. Oh, he's back now. Let's see, Cuthbert. Sorry, we were
about that. Are we all
yeah,
good?
Yeah, we're good now. You were saying the pass interference call on
Right.
Jaden Mays in the end zone.
So that was number one. That ball was uncatchable. Number two, regardless of whether it's catchable or not, that was not pass interference. And I understand that it's not as though that was, that's the reason why they scored. It would have been 4th and 1 from the 20, still an unenviable position to be in as a Black Knight defender. That being said, when all of a sudden it's 1st and goal from the 2, that does shift the momentum of things considerably.
Good point.
So, yeah.
Good point. Yeah, I don't know. I just Seth's checking in twice here. We'll get him back in here. Yeah, I think that the officiating. I don't know. You don't want to blame anything on it, but it certainly wasn't helping. But they played through the adversity. There were really no excuses for Army today. They ended up pulling it out. And Dawson Jones is somebody we have to talk about. Dawson Jones is, he's had his ups and downs, Dawson Jones, but today he comes up big with a 44-yarder in the first half and then the 27-yarder to win. And people might say, 27 yards, that's a gimme. That's a gimme kick, right? But there's a lot of pressure on that kick. Yeah. You're playing on the road. It's a place that you have the first time you're kicking in the stadium. Yes, you made your first field goal, but I mean, I've seen some good kickers miss kicks like that. So the fact that as a sophomore, Dawson Jones was able to make that kick really says a lot. I have a backstory on Dawson Jones, but first, I know, Seth, that you I think you asked a couple people in the press conference about Dawson Jones, and only a sophomore, and that's a kick that Dawson Jones can grow on, even though it's a game-winning walk-off kick against your Service Academy rival. And now maybe in these last 4 games, if they get down to a situation like this, there is a certain comfort level making another kick like that.
Yeah, the kid's a sophomore. He just beat in one of the 2 major games of the year. He's had a tough year. He's had a couple of, Kansas State he won. He helped the team win. He's a sophomore. He's going to grow. He's got a good leg. They were showing that he was kicking 62-yarders in before the game. The rarefied air of Colorado Springs. But give the kid credit. He came through when he had to. He had the other field goal. I think it was 42 yards. Is that right?
44
yards, even better. So yeah. I mean, he did what he had to do. Everybody did what they had to do, and we're walking away with a win.
I love how they put the field goal line on what his range is. You think Coach Monken would ever attempt a field goal over 50 yards, Cam?
Depending on the game and depending on the leg, I think he would. If he really trusts in you, he will. But he's so huge in analytics that, like, even on that 4th down call when we did get it, I mean, that's what other call are you going to make? I'm going for it there too. I'm not kicking the field goal. I mean, I know we didn't get it, but and I'm also biased because that's what I grew up in. That's always been the way that we've played, and that's been the way he's coached us. So, I mean, do you want to put the game on your kicker, or do you want to win it the way you're supposed to?
Yeah, good point. Dawson Jones, after the first game against Tarleton State, where there were a few misses, Quinn Moretsky got in touch with him the Sunday after the Tarleton State game, and Quinn Moretsky kind of had a chat with him. I don't know if it was via text or maybe it was a phone call, saying, "Hey, I've been in your shoes. I've had some kicks that didn't go my way, but everything's going to work out for you." And I think having a former Army kicker reach out to you, and is, from what I'm told, he was really down in that Sunday after the Tarleton State game, and getting that call from Moretsky kind of like boosts his spirits a little bit. And he's a good kicker. I mean, he's got one of the best kicking. He went through one of the best kicking coaches in the country, in Dan Orner, down in North Carolina. And man, it showed today. Good for Dawson Jones. We talked about special teams, right, Cuthbert? How about Jabril Williams down the ball at the 2-yard line today? That was a good punt by James Wagonseller today. Special teams was pretty good today. Special teams was solid for them. Wagonseller punted the ball pretty good today. You expect them to in maybe the elevations and stuff, but I mean they held their own. And that's what Cam, Seth, and Cuthbert, when Army's playing well, the offense is playing well, defense is playing well, special teams playing well. If they get all those 3 playing at a pretty good level, they're going to be in games and they're going to win games like this.
Well, that's what you need to do. Everybody's playing well. You're going to win. And got a couple of breaks our way, and a couple of breaks didn't go their way, and it was a victory.
I was going to mention real quick too about like Cale Helms' poise and just the way he doesn't force a lot of stuff, right? Like the Air Force quarterback I think both of his picks were he threw in the double coverage.
Yeah.
He threw in the double coverage one, like Gavin Shields, right? And then the Larkin, he might have had somebody else open. Cale Helms doesn't really do that. He did against North Texas, and he got pulled. He learned his lesson, and he's making the smart throws. He's putting the ball where only Army receivers are going to catch it. And a couple of times Army receivers caught it, and it helped them win the game. I'll tell you, Brady Anderson, we don't talk about Brady Anderson a lot on this podcast. He's one of the breakout players this year. I mean, he had a good spring, and I seen Brady Anderson running with like the first team, and I'm thinking because I think Liam Fortner and Toby Alawale might have been hurt. I'm thinking, okay, let's see what happens in the fall. And Brady Anderson, those guys are hurt at the beginning of the season, and Brady Anderson's a sophomore. I think he was like a scout team player last year. He didn't get any playing time, and look what he's doing. He's providing a little bit of Casey Reynolds this year. He's providing what they lost in Casey Reynolds. He's providing that deep threat that is not Noah Short. So I think that he might be the breakout player of the surprise breakout player of the year for Army this year. I don't know what you guys think, but I think that he's definitely deserving of a mention for this game.
I agree.
Well, I'm doing everything I can on social media to try and get Adam Baum Anderson trending. So make sure to use that nickname that I've crowned him. This is not the first time we've seen him come up big. He's had big catches against Kansas State. He is, I think he is an integral part of this offense, not because he's getting utilized frequently, but because when you need a receiving threat from a Realio Trulio wide receiver who's not a slot back, who's working a real wheel route, who's getting inserted into deep into the secondary, but you need a true wide receiver, on a play to make a play, and he's there. And I think he's done fantastically well this season. I'll admit I had never heard of him before the season started. I'm by no means have an encyclopedic knowledge of the roster, but he has absolutely been a surprise and a very welcome surprise for the talent that he has shown in the plays that he's made.
I had an interview with him in the preseason, in spring, and I'm like just getting to know him a little bit. He's from Minnesota, and when's the last time Army had a player from Minnesota that was that helped them win football games? I don't remember in my time. So it's good that opens up a little bit of recruiting in that state too when you see a guy like him make some plays. Real quick, I want to go over this. I admitted, Seth, you picked Air Force today. I picked Air Force today. I admitted in the first quarter when I'm seeing the Air Force guy complete some passes, I wrote down my notes. The difference in throwing between the two teams is alarming, meaning Air Force was so much better throwing the ball than Army. Then we have the short touchdown pass. Then we have the Brady Anderson touchdown throw over the top. So I got my working notes are pretty interesting. Maybe I'll post them somewhere on social media. This is what I thought, and this is kind of what happened. Cam, wanted to talk to you about this, and Seth and Cuthbert too. These teams hate each other. These teams absolutely hate each other. Before the game, CBS Sports has the assistant coaches in a little bit of scuffle with each other. I think it was the Air Force guy that made the first move, but I think it was Cheston Blackshear, the offensive line coach, that stood his ground and planted his feet down and say, bring it, basically bring it. And Owen Walter on a punt return, your long snapper tackling a guy passed into the sidelines. The energy is so high in this game, and maybe you could speak upon that. And there's a respect factor with the Army Navy game, but there is
none whatsoever with the Chair Force at all.
We are not sure if Coach Munkin and Coach Calhoun even shook hands after the game, because I think Coach Munkin was hugging up, Cale Helms. I think Coach Calhoun might have went to the 50-yard line waiting to shake somebody's hand. Maybe he shook like Cheston Blackshire's hand. I don't know. Maybe he shook another assistant coach's hand.
Well, I'll let you know this. I'm not going to put words in Coach Monken's mouth, but there's no love lost between the two, at all. And it's from the top of the staff all the way to the bottom of the staff, even to players that have played. Like, I have a very disdain taste in my mouth about Air Force. I could care less about them. And that's just the nature of the beast when you play those games. Like you said, have a tremendous respect for Navy. Respect them. Still our little brothers. We always want to beat them, but there's a little bit of respect there. But the Chair Force, we just you can. And you see, in the tensions after the game, even before the game, that's not nothing new. So, and so when you said you picked them to win, like, I'd rather be on my deathbed than ever pick them to win. We could have lost every game of the season. I'm always going to take Army.
2005 Army win at Falcon Stadium was the last before 2017. So that's only 3 wins in the last 20 years at Air Force. Wow.
Yeah. Monken said,
William. Appreciate it.
He talked about how some people think that when you play Navy and Air Force that everybody's friendly before the game, after the game. He used the expression something about you think we're sending each other postcards before the game and after the game, and during the game we're not friends. He goes, that's not the case. It's not. We don't like them, they don't like us, and it seems to be becoming more and more clear, especially with Air Force.
Yeah.
You do see some respect for Navy. Maybe because they're so close to each other, they're in the same conference. I don't know if the same conference. It's only been 2 years, but there seems to be less of that combative style between the two academies on the East Coast. But Air Force, I think Air Force was also the premier program for many, many years. And Navy took over about maybe 10, 15 years ago, and now Army about 8 years ago. And Air Force seems to be struggling. Though 2 years ago, they were ranked 7th in the country. So,
the thing is, go ahead, Cam. Go ahead.
Well, I'll tell you, I think a lot of the personality of a team comes from your head coach. And just the way that they carry themselves, that's a problem in itself. Obviously it's rivalries and you have, the bickering and back and forth that gets chippy, but it's just the things that Air Force says to us on the field. It's just their cockiness. And it's been like that even when I was there at the prep school. I mean, we went to Colorado. So the last time that we made the trip out to the last time that we beat them in 2017, we went out there and we played them at the prep school. And I just remember hearing some of the things that they were saying. I'm like, this is my first introduction to this rivalry. And I'm just like, I don't even know you, dude. What are we talking about? They just say very crazy, unkind things to somebody that's supposed to be your brother in arms. And I won't get into the details of what they say, but it's very interesting to hear that come from somebody that's supposed to be your partner after all this stuff is over on the field. And so it's just, that character comes from their head coach as well. So,
yeah. And if you're going to talk, back it up. It's 7 of the last 9 games now Army's won over Air Force. If you're gonna talk and chat, then back it up and win a game. You're not. This is 3 straight now for Army. I know a lot of stuff comes from recruiting too, and we can have a podcast on that with the way Air Force is recruiting and what they bring into recruits' homes, and a list of Army people who graduated from West Point and people that were, killed in action and stuff like that. I mean, that's the stuff I've heard in recruiting stories. And it's just like, just win it on the field, win it on the recruiting trail, and, back up if you're going to talk. And, they back up their home field.
They definitely say stuff like that during recruiting. They'll be like, do you want to – they will bring up facts of, how many people have been in the Army that have been killed in action compared to the Air Force, and they'll ask you. They're soft, honestly. To keep it honest with you, they're soft. They say stuff like that, and you'll be like, "Why is that a recruiting tactic that you want to use about people that have fallen, in combat?" And like, well, you don't really want to do that, do you? You want to do something like, okay, that's weird. So,
yeah, I'm a bit older than you guys, but I remember 1969 when Army starting to struggle. Getting people, they couldn't even fill the classes back then because of the Vietnam War. Air Force actually had a pretty good football team for 2 or 3 years in a row, 69, 70. I think maybe 68, 69, 70. And Army struggled 69 to when they didn't win a game in 73. And they were talking back then about how Air Force said, do you want your kid to go into the military and be boots on the ground? Or do you want to be flying in a jet, 20,000 feet above and many of them don't even go there. Or didn't go there. So that's been around for a long time. And I know it didn't sit well with the Army brass back then.
Yeah. Well, and I'll listen, I'll defer to you all day, Cam, on this, but I think it's a very interesting dynamic where you have Army and Navy that are military academies that have a long and storied history. And then you have Air Force, which, obviously for technological reasons didn't exist until, give or take 70 years ago. And so they come in a little bit of the sort of the redheaded stepchild. And so you've got the Commander-in-Chief's trophy. You've got the 3 service academies. They're all rivals with each other. But let's get real. It's the Army-Navy game. You know what I mean? It's not the Navy Air Force game. It's not the Air Force Army game. It's the Army-Navy game. And Air Force is just sort of there. You combine that with the fact that since they have become an academy, they have, on average, been the strongest of the football, in terms of football, been the strongest of the teams. You look at the lifetime records, you look at the lifetime CIC, Air Force is still number 1, in the lifetime. But to Seth's point earlier, last 15 years, last 20 years, Air Force has not been the dominant power that they were for so long, in terms of this 3-way rivalry. So they obviously are going to have sort of a permanent chip on their shoulder because to a certain extent, it's not to say that they're not a good team and they haven't proven themselves on the field. Since the CIC's been going on, clearly they have, though not recently. But you have Army and Navy, and it's a little bit like that Mad Men meme where, Air Force is saying, oh, I feel sorry for you. And Army and Navy are looking at Air Force going, I don't think about you at all. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm sure that stirs the pot. And to what you said earlier, Cam, Troy Calhoun has a very distinct reputation in terms of the type of coach that he is. Obviously, he is a graduate of the Air Force Academy. So, that is the further ingrained in their program and their culture. In terms of what they do on the field and the results that they have, I have quite a bit of respect for them. Beyond that, they are the chair force. Let's our day in Colorado Springs looks very different than our day at West Point. And that's just the way that it is.
Yep. And, I think you bring up great points. And Sal, even last week we talked about this. I told you that I thought Air Force was the most talented of the academies. Anytime we played them, my mom was like, no, that is a good football team. And the way that we win, sometimes I don't know how we pull it off because they are out of the 3 academies. They're always, to me, the most talented academy that you're going to find. But somehow, some way, we find a way to win or they find a way to lose it. And that's just the way the cookie crumbles. But those are phenomenal points that I 1,000% agree with.
I'm under the impression that the Army Air Force game and the Navy Air Force game is part of the Army Navy contract. They had that for CBS to keep the contract, they had to include the Air Force, the 2 Air Force games in there. I'm not positive about that, but I was told that several times. Otherwise, that game wouldn't be on national TV like it is.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I believe it's for, the Army Navy game. Obviously, we get new uniforms every year for that. But I think the Air Force and Navy game, Air Force is the one that gets the new uniforms, and they always premiere a new uniform. But they do have that little redhead stepchild effect because it's like, hey, we want some of this love too. And even when I was playing, they tried to incorporate it and make at least the Army Air Force game a lot bigger. We went to Texas and played in the Ranger Stadium, and I don't know what happened with the contracts or the agreements they had. It kind of fell through. We did it for a couple of years and then it just kind of fell off.
They lost money. That's what happened.
Yeah, probably maybe the viewership, maybe it just wasn't a bigger turnout as the Army Navy game is that they were trying to get going with the Air Force Army game. But yeah, 1,000%, I agree with you.
Army used to play Air Force back in the 60s. Used to play every other year when Air Force first got started. They played Navy one year and Army the other year. And for a few years there, when they played Army Air Force, they played at Soldier Field. And the first year, I think they sold out or had a big crowd, and that place was big. But I think it started to fall off, and they decided to move it to the home campuses, and then of course they started playing every year. So it's there's a history there. I think Air Force feels like the stepchild, and hey, listen, I remember back in the 70s, Navy was tired of it being the Army-Navy game. They wanted it to be called the Navy-Army game. That became an issue for a couple
Little history lesson.
Yeah.
So that's history lesson. We're gonna have a little
sports.
Hey, I think Jabril Williams said this earlier in the week, and he said that he doesn't really care. You play him in a parking lot. That's kind of a Jeff Monken quote that he might have stole. But you win at Globe Life Field in Texas. You win at Empower Field in Mile High. You beat them there. Now you beat them on their home field. I think you kind of own them right now, right? I think Army kind of owns Air Force right now. So we'll see. And today, I think it was mentioned, Army's getting contributions from some young players today. So I mean, we look at the defense and we think there's a really lot of seniors that play. But then you see Cole Seawright, who's a sophomore. You see Briggs Bartosh, the running back, who's a sophomore. So this is not gonna. They're in a good. Army's, I think, in a pretty good spot right now. To still have, next year's game will be played at Mikey Stadium, and I think it's
the new Mikey Stadium too.
New Mikey Stadium.
Look out.
Hey, one thing we didn't talk about in that regard is that Air Force is the Mountain West Conference is going to be a different league next year. It's not going to be as good as it is this year. A lot of their better teams, their best known teams, are leaving for the Pac-10, 12, whatever it is. That's got to hurt in recruiting. When now Air Force is playing, their big rivalry outside of Army Navy will be Northern Illinois, or Texas State. It's they're losing their rivalry. I mean, even Colorado State, which is an in-state rival, they're gone. They're leaving. So I mean, that's gonna hurt. That's going to hurt recruiting. I believe it's going to hurt recruiting.
Mark Moretsky, thanks. You also got Brady Anderson and Dawson Jones that are sophomore. Seth, I don't think any Army fan cares about what conference Air Force is playing in or their competition, or if they're not going to play Colorado State anymore. Who cares, Seth? Who cares?
My point is it's going to hurt their recruiting. That's my point.
All right, maybe. Who cares? I mean,
the quarterback. If they recruit well, you might feel differently, but I think they're going to be hurt recruiting wise.
I don't know. Hey guys, anything else on the game that you want to talk about? And then I want to talk about what the impact of this win could mean for the Army's remainder of the season. Anything else that we might have missed? We appreciate everybody watching. Go ahead.
There is one more thing I wanted. We did touch on it briefly, but it was a topic of hot conversation on social media during the game and immediately following, which was the decision to go for it on 4th and 1 from our own 26 or 29, wherever we were right there in the fourth quarter. Prior to that play, was calling for us to go for it. I said, I don't want to see Tulane 2.0. I know that we were in a different position because we were up by 7 at the time. So even if Air Force comes down and scores, provided they don't go for 2, it's only a tie game. It was not like Tulane where we are potentially punting the ball away for them to take the lead. But I think that was 100% absolutely the right decision to make. And a credit to that Air Force lineman who was on the ground and got his arm up just in time to trip Helms. I do think the ball was spotted poorly. I think that he probably got an extra half yard. I don't think it would have changed the review, the camera angles. It was what it was, but that was absolutely the right thing for us to do, because just like we saw, even if Air Force comes back and scores, it gives us more time to get ourselves down there in a position to win. Whereas if we punt the ball and Air Force scores with 10 seconds to go, then we are taking the knee heading into overtime. And so I think that was absolutely the right call. I think you run that play 10 times, I think 9 times out of 10, you get that first down and you start taking knees, because Air Force doesn't have any more timeouts. And we can just kneel it down and hand the ball to the ref, as Monken said in the post game. And I think that was absolutely the right thing to do. And then Air Force, they fall for the same trap we fell against North Texas. They didn't go for 2 when they should have. Air Force was snake bit this game. We're getting turnovers. We're getting sacks. Their offense, by and large, played well outside of a couple of plays. but it just was not in the cards for them today. They should have gone for 2 there the way we should have gone for 2 against North Texas, but we didn't because we were at home, and they didn't because they were at home, and it came back to bite both of us. So I'm glad to see that we learned from our mistake against Tulane. Even though it didn't work out, it's still the right call to make, and I will defend that. I will die on that hill. So I'm glad to see that we learned from that mistake. And hey, baby, we're back to 500. We're 2 games away from a bowl. We're 1 win away from the CIC. We won. Air Force lost. Navy lost. This is a great weekend.
It's a great weekend. Can't agree more.
No doubt. Real quick, want to say Noah Short scored his first touchdown today. And when Noah Short is scoring his first touchdown of the season in week 8, it's been the offense, like Cody Worley told, I guess, TV that they're going to try to force the ball into Noah Short today, try to get him as much touches as they can. But it was that kind of first play in that new formation that kind of opened things up to get Noah Short the big play. I don't know why they haven't tried a little bit more of the downfield passing with Noah this year on those type of plays. I know that Cale Helms didn't connect with him when he had him wide open earlier in the game, but it's just great to see one of your best playmakers on the team find the end zone. So maybe this is something that can be like I'm going to ask you guys what you think the impact of this game can be. If this doesn't go Army's way today, and it's not looking great, where they would be at 3-5 with the games that they have left. But now, like everybody's saying, they win both home games. The next 2 games at home, you're going to the bowl. Keep the momentum going. UTSA will be a tough road game. UTSA just had a big win. But what do you think this win means for Army in the big picture? Maybe we'll go to
I think Cuthbert just summed it up. I mean, they lose this game, they're 3-5, and what are they playing for? They're playing for a miracle to win 6 games and not playing for the commander in chief. They're just playing out the rest of the schedule. Now at 4-4, you got the important. Every game's important because you want to get to a bowl game. Hey, they can still finish 8-4. It's not a bad record. Not a bad record, and they got teams they can beat. Temple is beatable. Their quarterback was held to 80 yards today by East Carolina. This guy was throwing 5 touchdown passes a few weeks ago. Maybe we need to look at what East Carolina did against him. And then Tulsa's not a great team. Every game is losable. Okay, and then UTSA could be tough, and of course Navy's Navy. But who knows? They got to play us too. So somebody's going to win that game. We lose this game. To Cuthbert's point, it's a different season. It's a season where we're just mailing it in and hoping for a 6-6 record, maybe that some minor bowl will take us.
We don't want to see another 6-6 season at Army, and especially when you can't get that 6 win before bowl eligibility. And I know a couple of years back that was a team, story for another day, but that was a team with the Jimmy Charlos that should have been a bowl team, and they weren't. And I still feel bad for those guys because those guys played their tails off, and we can talk about that another time. Ken, what do you think the impact of this game? You're a former player. What do you think the impact of this game could be on the team moving forward?
I think Cuthbert and Seth made great points. I think anytime you're having a season like this, especially once you get to a CIC game, always the Air Force, the game we play first, that's always a pivotal game. And I know that's probably something that Coach Munkin said. This will, I believe, skyrocket them to hopefully win out. I'm nervous about the UTSA game because it's UTSA, and even though we usually do pretty good against them, that is always a phenomenal football team. Very strong, very athletic. Going to be a tough game, but winning this game, it kind of revitalizes you. You're going into a rivalry game and you put so much energy and so much effort into it, and if you lose, they always say you don't want last week's loss to carry to the next week and make you lose again. Well, you lose those type of games, you put so much effort and energy into it. That's essentially what it does. And so you get this victory. Now we're playing for another championship, potentially 2 championships if we win 6 games to get to a bowl game. So you have a bowl game, still the CIC still alive, and it just makes you want to play football again. So I'm not necessarily worried about Temple or Tulsa. For me, it's UTSA and Navy, obviously because it's Navy. But UTSA is a tricky team, man. And you got to go to Texas to play them. We'll see when we get there. Hopefully we're feeling good about it. But I think Army's going to be just fine. I think we do get a bowl game. I think we do beat Navy, and I think they end the season 9-4.
Mark Moretsky has a great point. He said this game could catapult them as the team, as many of the players on 2023 when they underperformed and had injuries before the win against Air Force, and they won out, right? That team won out the rest of their games in 2023, and that kind of sparked the 2024 season, the 12-win season that Army had last year. That's a good point. I mean, maybe it's a little deja vu. We shall see. I mean, great win. Thanks to everybody that was watching today, and everybody that's commented, and great to have Cam Holloway on for the first time. Cam's going to be here after games with us and provide that player's perspective. And it's great to hear from Cam today. And Cuthbert, appreciate you coming on as always. And Seth, thank you for your writing and coverage. Your game story will be online before midnight, I hope. So go to blackknightnation.com and read Seth. He wrote a really great game story on today with all kinds of aspects of the win. And also check out our social medias. Our Instagram is up pretty hot. Our YouTube channel has all kinds of pregame videos from Larry Pickett Jr. Has the alma mater, like I said. I just got his video on the game, Dawson Jones's game-winning kick. So we're gonna have a lot of stuff up for you. And man, Temple next week back at home. Army noon game on Saturday. Temple was off to a pretty good start. Now is maybe coming back to the pack. Army should be favored in that game, and we'll see how it goes. Seth and I will be at Mikey Stadium for that game, and we thank everybody for joining us tonight, and we look forward to seeing you again on the Black Knight Nation podcast.
Go Army.
Go on.
Go Army, beat Navy.